Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, we can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
Essentially, MLS Next has decided that they will be removing score lines, wins, and losses for the U13 and U14 levels. So that means that there's no scoreboard. No one's keeping score unless you're the coach and the players and a parent and basically anybody that could probably count how many goals they scored and if they won the game or not. So, but the reason behind it, why is and it is Luis Robles, I believe, is like the director of youth development for MLS Next. The reason behind it is because it's essentially supposed to focus on player development, which is what the academies are really there for, especially those lower age groups, is to gain more development as a player. And apparently this whole no score line, no wins, no losses thing, it is a common practice in Germany and England. Now, I can't tell you fully how it works over there on at that end, because once again, I'm not German and I'm not English, and I haven't watched a German and English academy game. But I have worked in the MLS Academy. I worked for the Houston Dynamo Academy, so I actually know kind of a little bit how those games go. Um, but I think I think the intention is there. I think you're just losing a lot of people with the whole not keeping score and not tracking wins and losses. But essentially, what MLS Next is their aim is to focus on player development. Look at how they're performing, not so much the end result. Which in reality, I think that's what the academy really is supposed to matter is, these coach, especially when these coaches from the higher level coaches, I don't think they necessarily care about if the U13 team is the best U13 team. They want to know about certain X player, see how they're developing. Is there any chance that this kid who is right now a U13 player, may push up to U14 or maybe even to U16? I don't think U15 is now a thing anymore on MLS Next. I think it's U16 and U18 now. But I think and in those levels, U16, U18, that's when they're like, all right, now these games kind of, now we gotta give you pressure, and I think that, but I think the whole not keeping score thing. I think what it's for me, I don't know if U13, U14 is those levels. I think for younger age groups, yes, let's get them to just play. Let's get them to just have fun with the ball, correlate with fun and game. Have them try some things that they saw on YouTube, which is kind of sums up me and Edward whenever we were playing as kids. We would see Ronaldinho do this move with his, on YouTube. We saw Ronaldo do this move, Fat Ronaldo, not Cristiano Ronaldo, do this move on YouTube, and then we're like, oh, we got to do it. And obviously, as we got older, then Cristiano Ronaldo, and Messi, and Zlatan came to be, and then that's when we were like, oh man, let's see if I can do this move, if I can do that move. It was having fun with the ball, but at the same time, aspiring to be like a certain player. Obviously, it didn't work out for us, but I think that essentially at the youth levels, the early levels, I think they're right. And I think the thing is with me with U13, U14, I think at that point, at that age, you want to win. You're competitive, and I think as far as people saying that it's more we should be focused more on the player development, especially in those ages. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're developing your players well, if you're developing good players with good technical ability, with good athleticism, the wins and losses will correlate that development. in some retrospect. I'm not saying that, oh, your team is so well developed they should beat everybody. I mean, some, things happen. Game is game at the end of the day. Um, but I think that the thing that would be weird is when these guys go from in a scenario where they don't keep score and it doesn't matter if you win or lose, to then go into U16 where now you're playing in these high pressure tournaments because I believe U16 U18 plays in a Generation Adidas Cup. So you're playing in these tournaments where it's win or you're not getting anything, right? Like, and the cool thing about Generation Adidas Cup, which I believe it's done now. Yeah, it's been way done. It was in April. The cool thing about Generation Adidas Cup is that you get to play against academies from not only MLS but also from outside the world. Like you could see, like, go against some of the European academies, some of the academies from South America, Mexico. So you want to compete with those guys. You want to be at your best level. And I think that obviously I think the importance is development. And I think the I people are gonna still track scores. Or people are gonna still are still gonna do that. I think even though MLS Next is kind of saying this is how it's gonna be, and I think they're talking about even switching it from 11v11 for 9v11 in the younger levels. Um, which I mean, I think it's perfectly fine. Make the field smaller, learn how to play in smaller spaces, things like everything kind of has a purpose in its own way and right. But I think, as far as saying that, oh, we're not gonna keep track of score, we're not gonna keep track of record. Like you may not be, but parents are gonna, players are gonna, coaches are gonna, because at the end of the day, you're especially when you're talking about MLS academies, which probably are the ones that like especially MLS academies where they basically get all the best players in that area and sometimes outside of that area um to bring in their players and develop a team that can go out there and win games and win tournaments. Once again, if you have a good developed academy, with players that are getting developed, hitting the target points for their development, whether it's physical or technical, like the correlation of them winning is going to it's going to connect. There's going to be a connection. There is a correlation at the end of the day. Like if your academy, if you're not really good at prioritizing technical ability, you're probably not going to be really sound when it comes down to making good passes and making strong finishes at the end of the day. And at the same time, maybe if you focus too much on technical ability, not too much on athleticism, yeah, you have guys that can move the ball, but probably get worn out pretty quickly, especially the amount of games that these kids play within a short time span. I mean, some of these kids are playing back-to-back games. Um, and Generation D is prime example. You're playing back-to-back games, you know, daily. You're playing like three games. 3 games, take a day a break, and then you go back into playing consecutive games again. And I mean, like for the U13 U14 level, I believe they play 30-minute halves, but I mean, I remember there's a tournament that U13 and U14 plays in Kansas City. I forgot what the tournament was called, but yeah, so they have a tournament over there, and those kids are playing 2 games a day. So it gets pretty, like if you're not fit, you're it's gonna be a rough stretch of games for you. So I think that that's something that once again, you need to find that good mix, that correlation of how to get these guys one fit, get your players fit, but at the same time, make sure they're working on their technical abilities, being able to be the best in their position possible. And I think MLS Next, with what they're partnering with, to me, that is the more interesting part of the story. The whole removing score lines, I think, to be honest, is just a very irrelevant thing to this conversation. I don't think keeping track of score and wins and losses affects too much of the player's development. I think at the end of the day, especially if these kids are the reason why these kids are coming to these MLS academies or accepting these opportunities to go to these academies or striving to be playing for these MLS academies is because they want to win. They want to win, they want to win stuff. And the correlation for them is if I win with these teams and I keep moving up age groups, I'm going to eventually become a professional player. And so for them, performing and winning will dictate that they're on the right track. And once again, player development, and that's also another aspect of it. If you're playing, especially when you're playing in MLS academies, you feel that those resources are far much better than any other, regular club, local club. But anyways, Taka. So this is what MLS Next who they're working with is Taka. Taka is an Irish consulting group. It's their whole thing is analyzing players, like looking through game film and grading performances off that film. Uh, and it's not like some just regular like mathematician that's just looking at statistics. Like they're generally having like coaches from different levels, whether it's professional, amateur, even youth level coaches come in and they they study the film of these players and they get kind of a good estimate of what this kid could bring. They grade them. Um, because I mean, like, what is if you were to say like a kid had 1 out of 12, so out of 12 dribbles, he only had one successful dribble, dribble against an opponent. You know, on paper, when you see 1 to 12, that's like he's probably not that efficient. But if you have someone that's actually studying the film and seeing what the kid is doing, maybe there's something in his game, maybe there was some good ideas. What did he do in that one successful dribble that was so different from the others? And was it a progression or was it a was it or was he was it there a digression? Also, I don't know if I was using those right words, but was it him or was it the defender? What was the reason behind that stat? And I think essentially that's what Taka is doing. Taka is there to evaluate these players, and is like once again, it's not some guy, some nerd, looking at numbers on a screen. It's somebody that understands film, understands how to analyze that film, understands player mentality, identity profile, all those things. Those are who's looking after it, and I think that could be a great asset. As a matter of fact, Premier League clubs use Taka for this specifically. Also probably for the youth levels, but maybe even in that professional level to help evaluate, you know, is the team performing well? Is there things that they can improve on? What's the real story behind the statistics? And I think that once again, if you're focusing more on player development, because once again, stats are cool and all, like that, that's all fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, you gotta see what the kids do on the field. You gotta the eye test is at the end of the day is still going to be more prevalent, especially in this game, over a statistic. And it's great that MLS Next has been able to partner up with this kind of group like Taka to help more and more evaluate the game. Because once again, it is just their next way to aim to improve player development. How do you improve ideology? How do you improve the roadmap that is from academy to professional? Because I think that there's still a lot of flaws in MLS youth systems. I think there's still a lot of flaws in just U.S. soccer development as a whole. Obviously, pay to play is still going to be something that is going to be pushed by everybody. Look, like I said, I don't know. I know it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. I just don't think it's the end all be all. Like, I don't think that that's going to be like, oh, pay to play is gone. All of a sudden, U.S. soccer is now the standard when it comes to football. It's not that. It's a cultural thing. At the end of the day, in this country, you have soccer is just not the first choice. It's just not, especially and people are gonna say, and I kind of don't like using pay to play because club baseball is a thing. AAU is very prevalent, like to the point where, you know, college scouts don't even care what you do in high school. They care about what you do in AAU, which is kind of similar to club, if you will, for basketball. So like, um, more and more, more and more people are so like pay to play is very much a thing in America. It's a very American thing. At the end of the day, it's just who's willing to spend the money. And I'm sure that like kind of similar to I know as far as I know from my time at the Houston Dynamo, there's scholarships. Like there are scholarships that are offered to some players. I know that's not all of them, but some players do get some sort of scholarship opportunity where the academy ends up covering the fees, the academy fees. But I just don't know what that percentage is. I'm assuming it's not a high percentage. And I think that there's more things that need to be there's other things in the academy system that needs to be addressed. I just don't think that the solution is pay to play. At the end of the day, it's a cultural thing. Like when soccer stops becoming an afterthought for most people. Um, you know, that's where the real core of when youth soccer is gonna get better is when this is not the last option. Like kids at the end of the day are gonna pick football. They're gonna pick basketball. They're gonna pick baseball. Um, soccer and hockey and baseball probably are right now like the sports that are maybe not the top priority for a kid's development. I mean, it's an unfortunate reality, but that's just the way it is. And then for those kids that do like soccer, yes, pay to play does harm those kids. But I've seen a lot with the Houston Dynamo, I've seen a lot of kids that come from where I grew up, and I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, there's not a lot of rich people where I grew up at. So like, I mean, there's people that sacrifice. I mean, there are parents out there that are working class that they see that this is a good opportunity for the kid, and they just are willing to pay those academy fees for the sake of their kid. But I mean, I know that's not all. I know that's not all cases. I know that there are some kids that are just not in there's parents that are just not in that situation where they could just do this for them. And those are the kids that do get those scholarship opportunities. I think as far as like focusing on player development, it is right. But I think it's got to be at the younger levels. I think it's more so getting in that U6, U7 level, like trying to get these kids to have fun with the ball, just in general, just having fun, just connecting with the ball and fun, connecting, you know, I want to be that guy. I want to, watch videos on, you know, I want to watch, and I mean, obviously, overseas players cool. Like, I want to do what Lamine Yamal does, cool. But like, get these kids to be like, I want to do what Griffin Dorsey does. I want to see, I want to move like Denny Bouanga does. Like, those are, kind of talk about the league itself as well, because that's a whole other issue as well. There's a lot of people that like soccer in this country, but there's not a lot of people that like MLS. And say what you want, but like in most other countries, like hell, even El Salvador, like people still love like the Salvadoran league is still the more watched league, and then but people still like Barcelona, Real Madrid, and the Premier League and any other club in the world, but like their passion is more towards the Salvadoran league, and I think that is a problem here is that everyone likes the Premier League, everyone likes La Liga, but not everybody likes Major League Soccer. And I totally get it. I get that aspect, but this is your local league. And you hear people, the fans from over there like support your local club. Just support your local club. That like there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with supporting your local club. Like I mean, I like obviously I support Houston Dynamo. I mean, I identify as a Madrista, but I support my local club. But and that's another thing. Another thing, I don't necessarily think like that's more of a cultural thing. It's not a youth development thing, but But as far as youth development, I think that this is an asset. This is a good asset. And I hope this is a step in the right direction because in the reality, the U.S. isn't a powerhouse, and it's gonna not be a powerhouse for a good while. And as a matter of fact, this is a quote from Luis Robles. The last time I checked, the United States has not won the World Cup. Last time I checked, Major League Soccer is still not the top league in the world. So it seems like there's space to be curious, be creative, and tinker a little bit. What Luis Robles is saying, like, U.S. is not a World Cup contender. U.S. hasn't won a World Cup. Major League Soccer is not a top league in the world. So if you know whatever you have been doing hasn't been working, you know, like you're in a position where you can try something different and see if it works. And I think now I the whole like once again the whole removing score lines and wins and losses for the U13 U14. Yeah, you lost me on there, but this addition of Taka, like I think that this is going to be interesting. I can't wait to see how it works. I can't wait to see it if it does correlate to more academy players getting pushed up with the first teams, because that's where it's going to be that should lead to that. It should lead to more young players, more like uh more Caven Sullivan. If Taka can help us bridge that gap even closer between MLS Next to Major League Soccer, that's gonna to me that's when you can praise Luis Robles for taking this risk. Maybe some people right now don't see the vision. Like I said, I don't agree with the whole not keeping track of scores. I think at the end of the day, you want kids to be competitive. You want kids to want to compete and want to win. Um, and I think that that's also an important part of their development as a professional player. But I get the aspect of wanting to focus more on player development, making it that, you know, you know, making sure that they are getting the proper training to become better players. Um, and so I think that that's an important part. But I will say, there's going to be somebody on that bench that's going to keep track of the score. There's going to be somebody that's on the bench that's going to keep track of the record. There's going to be a parent that's going to do these things as well. So it like as much as Luis Robles is preaching that we're not going to keep track of scores, someone's going to keep track of the score. That's just as a matter of fact, I would have been keeping track of the score because I wanted to know if we won or not. So, and once again, it goes back to that there's just kids that are going to compete. These kids are the best players from across all the academies in that local area. They came into that academy because they wanted to play with the best players and win competitions.
Who is that guy?